Okay, so quick introduction to the Uresil Thoracic Vent. Basically, we have a collection chamber. We have a little vacuum chamber where you can go ahead and withdraw manually using the supplied 60 ml syringe if need be. You have a connection chamber here for the suction tubing and another apparatus that I'll show you here in a second. Most importantly, actually at the top, you have a diaphragm which will oscillate when the provider has actually got this through the chest wall. It's responsive to the change in intrathoracic or pleural pressures during the patient's respirations. When they're inserting this, they're constantly looking at this diaphragm, or they should be. And the moment that it starts to pop up and down, that lets them know that they've gone essentially as far as they need to go and they're in the pleural space, and they can go ahead and remove the trocar. Other things that come in this box, we have a plug that the patients can use. They never use this, but they take it to the thoracic surgeon for their follow-up visit. That's important. Don't ever put this in otherwise because it stops the device from working. There's a couple drapes in here, some 4x4s. We've got a little, essentially a dilator to do our cut down. We have a nice scalpel also to assist with the cut down. By the way, just from a nurse's perspective, I always feel like the doctors need to cut a lot deeper than they anticipate, especially with people with relatively thick chest walls or anybody that's muscular. The cut down process ends up being significantly more significant like that. They have to go deeper. So there's enough length on the scalpel to do it, but I've just seen them have to essentially bury the scalpel in order to get through to the pleural space. We're still doing the same approach, right? Just over the third rib, second intercostal space, no problems. Speaking of the trocar, this is the trocar. Before the doctor goes to insert this, they're going to put the trocar through here as part of their insertion process. And essentially what they're doing is they're pushing through the chest walls, and they're looking at the top of this diaphragm to see it as it begins to go. So they're holding this all back, and they're shoving, looking at the diaphragm. The moment it starts to pop up and down, boom, they're in. So at that point, they can essentially advance just a little bit more and then remove the trocar. Once the trocar is out, and the device is all the way in, then it's essentially our turn to take over. They remove the adhesive flaps, and then you can go. So in the initial phase, there's two ways that you can use this. One way is you can use the bicycle pump. That's what I call it. It's not actually called a bicycle pump, but effectively what this does is it connects to the front of the apparatus here, and you push it through. There's a little self-sealing septum in here, which is why, I don't know if you noticed that, but this is metal and it's designed to come through this self-sealing septum. And then you take the supplied 60 ml syringe, and you connect it to the bicycle pump. And so this would be in a patient's chest at this point, you know, essentially like this. And so the doctor might say, let's see if we can get any air out of it. It sounds great, by the way. Okay, here we go. So we got a couple, you know, getting some air out essentially. It's a one-way valve. So I pull the air out 60 mils at a time, and as I expel it out through the vent, it's coming out here and it's not going back into the patient. So this is a nice way just to kind of do an exploratory bit of pneumothorax reduction just at the very beginning. If you don't want to do that, or if you feel like you've got a suction apparatus ready to go and the syringe doesn't work for you clinically at that point, go on ahead and don't use it. You can actually use another piece of supplied material that comes with the kit that allows you to just hook it up to a regular suction apparatus. So we'll show you what that looks like here. So same exact process. We have our self-sealing port, we have our metal introducer. The two go together, and then we can connect here to our regular suction apparatus. And we're good to go. So that's another way to do it. Admittedly, it's a lot louder of a way to do it. From my standpoint with the Uresil Thoracic Vent, I feel like these are really good for evacuating pneumothoraces. Air tends to rise, it tends to sit right up next to that kind of that second intercostal space. Because of the diameter or the lumen of this actual tube here, it's not typically going to be great for removing large amounts of blood, especially after it starts to coagulate. In which case, you know, obviously just a chest tube is the way to go. What is nice about these though is patients can go home with these. You know, we put the cap back on and give the patient some good aftercare instructions and say, listen, you're going to follow up with your thoracic surgeon, typically, you know, like the next day or in 2 days or whatever they actually tell you to do. And what they do is they go to the thoracic surgeon, they present with this on their chest, and the doctor says, okay, great, listen, I'm going to go ahead and take a chest x-ray or review your most recent chest x-ray that showed that there was no air. And then we're going to put this plug in there. So this plug actually stops the device from working. Never use this unless you're in the thoracic surgeon's office the next day. It stops the device from working. The plug goes through, it blocks the septum, and it prevents it from evacuating any air, from doing its job. You can never develop a tension pneumo while this device is in place, but if you have this plug in, you can. So the plug goes in, And they sit in the thoracic surgeon's office or wherever they happen to be, and then basically an hour later they take a repeat chest x-ray. And they're looking for any air buildup an hour later after the repeat chest x-ray. And if there's any air, of course, then they know they need to leave it in there longer. And if there's no air, then they can essentially DC the apparatus and figure out what they need to do going forward clinically. And that's it. That's the Uresil Thoracic Vent. Please ask me if you have any questions, and I'll try to do my best to answer them. Thanks.